This week's guest on Let's Talk is Siraj Zaidi, actor, writer and director. In part 1 he talks about his early years in India, choosing to be an actor, moving to London to study drama, then living in Dublin. We also discuss how important exploring his faith was in the early years in Ireland, but his main focus was on acting, working in film and television. Being in the West gave him an opportunity to see a different perspective on world events through the more liberal media. This is Let's Talk with Siraj Zaidi. So this is Let's Talk, and my guest today is Siraj Zaidi, who is an actor, writer, director and producer. So welcome to my show.
Thank you, George, for having me.
What I normally do, these are interviews to actually just get to know the person and what their interests are and where they have come from and where they are in their life's journey, that kind of thing. So tell us a little bit about your journey from India to the UK and Ireland.
Okay. As a young man in India, I qualified from the University of Lucknow, which is north of India, Uttar Pradesh. I have a degree in biology and science, the first degree. The idea was to become a doctor and go into the medicine, but unfortunately the life didn't turn out to be that way, as usually happens in life. So I got interested in the bigger culture which was surrounding me at the time, and it was the cinema culture of India, Indian cinema. So I started taking a keen interest in the drama aspect of that, the theatre aspect of that, the television drama locally, and got actively involved with that.
Sir, let us have a little realism about our discussions and about our constitution making. The greatest danger in the future may not be that the center will interfere too much, but that the units may resent the guidance of the center. And what do we mean by saying that the president may take the powers into his own hands and may become an absolute dictator?
I must say that I come from a very small Shia Muslim background and a humble background and a very simple family. But our faith and lineage comes from the Prophet Muhammad's directly. So we are Sayyid people. However, that was just the home kind of background. But I professionally, I wanted to do something in life. I wanted to travel the world, I wanted to see the world, but my destination was ultimately to the land of cinema, because the land of cinema was bigger than anything else around me. When coming back from school, there was a cinema house on the way in, and I used to watch the big posters which the painters actually sit to do the painting by hand. And they were like a massive billboards done by hand paintings. And these were the hard-working people in a harsh climate of sun and heat and whatnot would sit there and paint those big stars, film stars, heroes and heroines and all that. So I was kind of fascinated by the whole images of cinema that was surrounded us. And then there was glossy magazines surrounding the cinema culture of India. So I was kind of drawn into it. Coming towards the end of my sort of academic career, the family wanted me to go on and to do the masters in zoology and become the biotechnology or whatever, bioscientist or chemist or whatever, but I was not interested. And I said, look, if I'm not going to become a doctor, I have to go into this world of cinema world. How do I start? Not very interested in technology, the photography aspect of that, but I was interested in performing aspect of that. The performers who were performing on a silver screen was the big influence on me. Watching a lot of cinema at the time, because cinema was very cheap and very easy. Any excuse, any holiday, and the entertainment was cinema. So you just buy the ticket, go in the cinema and cuddle yourself in the comforts of air conditioning, comforts of big cinema, and watch those wonderful stories and people performing wonderful, characters. That was a big draw. How do I go about to make sense out of that? So I started finding out how people become performers. I realized that the only way to become a performer is to join the theatre and work in theatre. So I then translated that my activities into some work of theatre with the amateur theatre locally in my city of Lucknow. I started performing there effectively through that company, amateur theatre company. That progressed into television. I did a lot of television drama with the local television. And that pushed me to go to a bigger city, Delhi, and to join a bigger repertoire of theatre company and perhaps a National School of Drama, which was the prerequisite to become a known sort of star in Bollywood, so to speak, as we know at this stage.
And what age range was that from and to?
I was there. I graduated at the age of 18. So I finished university at the age of 18, towards the end of 18-19, the Bachelor degree of Science, a degree in Biology, Science, Zoology, Botany and Chemistry. And at that time, I was not sure whether I'm going to do the postgraduate Masters, MSc in this line or not. So I heavily got involved with theatre and working as an actor, as in theatre. Then in Delhi, what happened was that fate didn't have it that I appeared at 2 years, twice in fact, I appeared in the National School of Drama entrance procedure and were not accepted because it was the only drama training institute in Delhi, and the number of people coming from all over India, which is a large country, was huge. And so there was a regional quota, there was a this, that, the other, and I was unable. However, at the same time, I got a job in a repertoire company where I was performing and getting paid peanuts, like $2 or €2 of today's thing, a month. But I was happy. I was performing every day. I was doing productions, The director of that theatre was in London, and Mr. Das, his name was Ayil Das, the company called Little Theatre Company, LTG, in the area where the drama school, National School of Drama was, the area called the Mandi House. And Little Theatre Company was a theatre, and they said, look, you should get trained in London. That's a great place, and it's full of theatres, full of Western culture of theatres and things like that. You should go and good drama school there. My brother, who's a doctor, who lived in England all his life, was the only connection at the time. So I phoned him up and I said, look, I want to become an actor and I do want to join the drama school. He said, are you mad? In our family, nobody ever ventured out in this business. You have no idea what you're talking about. I said, no, excuse me, I do have an idea what I'm talking about. I'm very confident and I really want to see it through myself. So he said, look, I think you should come over and appear in the audition, the process. They don't take you straight away like that. But if you do get accepted, I'll back you and I'll help you. So lo and behold, I came for the audition and I appeared for the audition at LAMDA, London Academy of Music and Dramatic Arts, for an acting performing course. And that I was not expecting that I will be accepted. But I prepared for the course. I prepared for the audition so hard. I had to perform 2 pieces, one from Shakespeare, a 3.5-minute piece, and one from a contemporary writer. So I started reading plays of contemporary writers and classical plays and things like that. And so they said one has to be Shakespeare and one has to be the contemporary writer. So I'd chosen the caretaker from Harold Pinter, who was one of my favorite writer at the time. And I prepared for those 2 pieces so hard, 6 months preparation for 6-minute pieces, because that was my crucial stage of my life. And I said, if I don't get accepted to this place, what would I do? Where would I go? I've lost a year to continue my education here. So, but I was full of hope and enthusiasm that single-minded to get to this place. And so I landed in London, and lo and behold, my brother took me there and he said, look, go for the audition and see what happens. I went for the audition, well, extremely well dressed and all that. I was a bit embarrassed to see everybody was in tracksuits and jackets and t-shirts, and here I was in three-piece suit and looking like an idiot. But I did my pieces as I prepared, and luckily I was accepted. I was the only one from India at the time who was accepted in that prestigious drama school. In London, as you probably would know, there are 4 drama schools: Central School of Speech and Drama, the Guildhall, RADA and LAMDA. So I was thrilled that here I am. I've arrived.
What year roughly was that?
82.
82, okay.
1982, 83 it was. Yeah. And it was a 3-year course. And the best of the best years of my life were in drama school. I discovered myself.
Yeah.
Theatre training and drama schools are the places where, as a human being, you discovered yourself. You discover your voice, you discover your body, you discover yourself. The freedom you get to explore everything with text written by eminent writers, playwrights, and of course the theatre writers. We were also asked to read quite a lot during the training as an actor, because an actor must be well read, particularly autobiographies of established stars and actors and things like that. It's a lot of free time that we had in our hand between the classes and between the places. We've been asked to read as much as we can. I found the whole process was very interesting and very encouraging and very challenging at the same time. And then the exposure that we were getting in London for watching huge amount of writers, huge amount of productions and things like that. That was real education for me, I would say. I mean,
and did you continue to go to the cinema during that period?
Oh, absolutely.
Was that important as well as the
very interesting incident happened when I finished my piece of The Caretaker of Harold Pinter's play. The principal of the drama school, Roger Croucher, Roger said to me, Siraj, have you seen the cinema? The film was made on this particular play, The Caretaker, and Mr. Alan Bates played the character you played. And I said, no, I'm not aware of that, that there is a movie of this play. He said, well, if you can, try and watch it. And after a couple of months, there was a place where they used to run this classical thing, and there was a play, and I went to see this film. And then I realized how awful I was performing the character of Alan Bates, who performed that character. But anyway, yes, I did continue watching cinema, but my Hindi cinema, my Bollywood industry cinema was not there. Was hardly there, occasional, I was not even aware of that. But then I was exposed to another kind of cinema, the European cinema, the British cinema, the bigger. What was interesting merging was the Channel 4 came into the being, and Channel 4 was doing a lot of multicultural films. So I could relate to those films and thought that maybe I would naturally land in these films as a performer. But then another problem happened after I graduated from the drama school was that how to stay in England. I came as a student. Immigration was a very tight thing on those days. And they were very hard on students to go back when you finish your studies. So the dilemma was in front of me that I don't want to go, I want to work here, I want to live here. But then again, technically I was not allowed to. Creatively, I thought, what is the option? Let's explore other places. And here, Ireland was the haven for me.
It's very interesting because you came to England in 82, and I assume then you graduated in 85.
86.
86,
yeah.
okay. Yeah. I went to Bournemouth to film school in 1980
Oh, wow.
and graduated in 1983.
Fascinating.
So I would have been seeing a lot of the cinema at that time
At the
that you would have
time,
been.
yes,
Sort of the new
yeah.
German cinema and
Yeah,
French
cinema,
and
it
all
was-
that kind of stuff. And then in 1984, I came to Northern Ireland
There you go.
as an assistant film editor to Belfast. So what was your how did you end up
My
coming to
introduction
Ireland?
to Ireland was the BBC, actually. I ended up working when I was in final years of drama school as a voiceover artist. So I was translating scripts. I was broadcasting 3-minute piece to 15-minute piece to the BBC World Services in Bush House. And that was my introduction. So one of the producers said, look, have you been to Dublin? There's a theatre festival over there. Why don't you go and make a radio documentary about it? So I said, yeah, I've heard about Dublin, I heard about Ireland, but I've never been to that warring place. And, you know, you hear Ireland in terms of IRA, you hear Ireland in terms of war. It's not a place to go, and it's always unstable to work and live there. But then I said, look, it's the summertime, I'm free, I would go and do the radio documentary. And so I came over here to make a 1-hour radio documentary about Dublin Theatre Festival. I explored the city and the quietness of the city, and quite similarity with London, actually. I found it very comfortable in the city. Met interesting people, had a very good conversation, made my program, filed my program, and then I returned back. So that's where I was introduced to city of Dublin, and a city of writers, city of scholars, city of, you know, all that. I was not looking into the bigger picture of Ireland, of freedom movement and Catholicism and all the rest of it, but I was concerned primarily of my profession and can I live here, and can I grow further as an actor? And I realized, yes, I can. Perhaps it's not professionally a good move. Here I was freshly graduated. I should have been ending myself up in New York or, you know, or in Mumbai for that matter, back to Bombay, and continue my professional career there. It would have been much more profitable for me, and I would have been, you know, hugely different level altogether at that time. But I've chosen Dublin to. I found Dublin intellectually challenging and very interesting city when I dabbled into the writers here. There was a writers' centre here, there was a writers' museum here, there was a Trinity College, then there was a program that I got involved in, community theatre program. I ended up teaching to underprivileged kids into the skills, theatrical skills. And it was funded by the local FOSS scheme at the time. So it was a journey further into fulfilling my ambition into theatre, and then I continued that. But again, I was reading Irish Times, which I found very, very interesting newspaper, because Irish Times had the quality writers writing for it. Irish Times is the kind of a newspaper which will give you a wider scope for the world. The stories they would cover for the world affairs were quite interesting. And of course, artistic section of Irish Times was also very good. So I kind of find that, look, this could be my place to live. But then I've given myself a few years and I said, I will go back to Mumbai, just hang around here for a few years. But those things translated into, and I went back to India. And I went back to Mumbai 3 times, in fact, and tried to explore my destiny there. This is the city of dreams, as we call it. Worldwide people now go to Mumbai and to try their destiny. From throughout India, people travel. Even when they qualify from National School of Drama in Delhi, they go to Bombay and become a reasonably okay working actors, and successful and not so successful. But they do end up in this city of dreams, which is Bombay, which makes a maximum number of films, bigger than Hollywood, and absorbs all sorts of talent. And this is the beauty of that city is. However, I found it very challenging, overwhelming, difficult to live in. Not financially. I was okay financially because I had money, I had a background of okay family background. So there was no problem as such of a struggling to paying my rent and eating food and that sort of thing. No, it was more challenging for me when I had a taste of a good life in London, when I was, used to of comforts of life, and then going back to that struggle of Mumbai, I couldn't hack it, and I said, this is not for me, for the minute anyway.
We've been discussing your career journey and the drama, which and the writing, which I think is important. I know when I left college, I was on a spiritual journey as well as a filmmaking journey. I felt that there was a kind of calling into that, and I ended up finding myself in Northern Ireland. And for me, the challenge was being English and getting used to an Irish kind of culture. But what I also found was, although there was the troubles, I also found that I could suddenly relax with my faith. What were the challenges that you found in exploring your faith as well as the drama? How important was that at that stage?
Faith was very personal for me at the time. I was not hugely drawn into faith. Yes, I was a practicing Muslim. Yes, I was doing my prayers during the daytime and all the rest of it, and the evening. But my concern was my career more than my faith. I eventually found a huge sea of faith in Ireland, and there's so much God here, too many or too much God in it. And when I explored and met people who are deeply Catholic people and Protestant people, because the area I lived in was Church of Ireland area in Rathgar in Terranure. A very interesting area where the Institute of Church of Ireland was here. So I met interesting priests, I met interesting people there eventually, and then explored that journey. My personal one, Islam was very rudimentary at the time. Islam was very small at the time. There's only one mosque in Zasakra Road, which I used to visit occasionally, not regularly. It was not of my sect, should I say, but it was Islam. In Islam, you can allowed to go to any mosque. The Klansky Mosque, which is a huge mosque, was not built at the time. The center where we're now sitting here at the Ahlul Bayt Islamic Center was a makeshift place in a small house near my area where I used to visit. And my spiritual journey actually was tiny beginning to happen at the time, because I thought, this place is my place. Although it's a makeshift house, I should visit it more often. And I started visiting. That's where I met our Imam, Dr. Ali Al-Saleh, who is a scholar. He's a medical doctor himself, who came to study at the College of Physicians, Royal College of Surgeons, and then given up the medicine and become the full-time Imam of this place. So these were the journeys of the different people, and my journey was kind of, still I was struggling to become an established filmmaker and an actor. My priority was to become an actor. And I did become an actor in Dublin. I ended up doing a good work with RTE. I did Fair City, 14 episodes. I did a lot of films. I did major films with Jim Sheridan, 2 films with him, then short films, and then many other student films and things like that. Theatre was not very receptive and not very successful, because not many people found myself to be the right person to cast it in the type of plays they were doing. The plays was O'Casey and typical Irish plays, did not find a character for me. And so therefore I did not find naturally, landing into those established theatre spaces like Abbey, Gaiety, the Project Art Centre. These are the key areas. I ended up working with Deirdre O'Connell in Focus Theatre, which is no longer around. And then I did a lot of plays with the Trinity Samuel Beckett Theatre, and directed quite a few plays and that. So still I was hanging around in the land of theatre. Now theatre itself is very challenging. And when you're a young person, you are motivated to explore the territories you would like to through theatre, because I have seen and witnessed in London and back in India a revolutionary theatre, street theatres, a theatre which is a meaningful theatre, which changes society, which takes up challenges. That led to me into a world bigger picture. Ireland was the place where I can read and hear unbiased information about the world. and RTE was broadcasting a wonderful thing. So I become naturally aware of more and more about things which was happening in the world. The war in Kosovo, Yugoslavia was splitting up, happened. And I was in my apartment listening, what's happening, watching on television, what's happening, getting motivated by the whole thing, getting moved by the incidents that was happening in the splitting up of Yugoslavia at the time, the Kosovo, the Bosnian massacre and things like that. And started relating back to it and exploring through my faith that where are we heading? Then, lo and behold, the first Gulf War happened. At the time when I came, the Iran-Iraq war was just coming to an end, at the tail end of it. 9 years of war in which 2.5 to 3 million people died. Saddam Hussein was the atrocities that Saddam Hussein was committing to the people during the war, and how he was backed by Maggie Thatcher, how the super gun affairs happened, how the Matrix Churchill was making, and Maggie Thatcher was saying, war is great for us. It's a wonderful business. We're making tons of money by supplying wonderful weapons to Saddam Hussein. All that things were hitting me somewhere at the back of my mind. And I'm saying, okay, I'm listening, I'm reading, I'm hearing, but this is happening to Muslims out there. This is happening to people of my faith. Why? And I was just questioning why I was not bold enough. So I ended up writing a film script about it. I ended up writing a beautiful love story between a Muslim artist and a Catholic nurse, and tried to make that feature film. Finished the 9 drafts of that script, tried to get that funding for that script. Very close came to making it as a television film, but again, that was being taken away from me very shortly. Couldn't get made because I couldn't get funding for that. Because I thought maybe through love I could bring the two faiths together, and in a fiction way. That story, a beautiful story, which a lot of people praised, and it won at a lot of European platforms, a place for co-funding, where I would attend those meetings and meet the potential investors and financiers and things like that. But at the end of the day, they would say how much money your own home country is putting back. And that's why I was falling back. In Ireland at that time, there was no film board. There was no funding structure. It was very hard to find supposedly big money to make a feature film, and to make a film of that standard, which I wanted to make. So I shelved it, and I ended up doing television documentaries. And the subject that I picked was return immigrants, because the island was booming at the time. Celtic Tiger was roaring like anything. And I felt maybe this is the subject which I should pick it up. People who went abroad, Irish people, who were returning back, allured by the companies, allured by the Celtic Tiger. I end up 32 county bases going around Ireland, interviewing those people with my cameraman, and we filmed it, and we cobbled together a 6-part series called Away and Home. I was watching Home and Away quite a lot. But then I thought, these guys, why they left? They left because they were economic migrant. There were no jobs here when I came. And my family couldn't understand how I could survive in the city of Dublin. Parents were, and particularly my brother, who supported me a lot, the doctor guy in the UK, he was saying, look, Ireland is traditionally a very poor country. There's no employment there. There's no jobs prospects there, let alone the jobs for actors and qualified people like yourself. Why are you living there? You're wasting your time. You're wasting your life there. And I said, look, maybe I am, but I am finding is something which is very rare, which doesn't exist in London. I found London of that time, of the 80s, and Richard Branson was the hero. If you don't make pots of money, lots of money, you're nobody. And economic success was the only thing that was counted upon, that you have to have a decent house, an apartment, and flashy cars and that sort of thing, It was not my priority. My priority was to get my teeth into the world of profession artistically, and I wanted to make that film. I said, I'll make it. It'll be difficult. It took took 12 years for Noel Pearson to make My Left Foot. I'm nobody here, nobody knows me. The subject matter which I'm talking about is alien to the people here. And they find it they don't know how to fund this picture like this, you know. But I'll make it. It'll happen in the future. And that faith, that conviction kept me going year after year after year. I ended up teaching media studies here in a private college and making a big money then. I was teaching the full-time day course and teaching an evening course. 2 courses I was teaching. 17 hours of teaching I used to do. And was making a huge amount of money. What I was doing, I was putting it back into the movie. I was gambling. And that is not right. But that taught me a lot of things about the film industry. It took me to the Cannes a few times in a year. It took me to Europe. It took me to Canada, to Hollywood, and met all sorts of characters who are in the business. So I was enjoying that journey of exploring how, but again assured myself, yes, one day I will make this picture. Didn't happen. Then I turned around and I said, I'm going to make a documentary now. So it's much easier for one person and a cameraman and a good story. So therefore I end up making Away and Home, the first television series, a 6-part series on returned Irish immigrants who went to abroad and came back, you know, attracted by the Celtic Tiger and the success of the Celtic Tiger. And that turned out to be extremely well received by the national broadcaster RTE. They didn't commission me, but they bought the finished product. It was, for me, it was enough to cover the cost of that, and I paid a few quid back to the cameraman, and I was happy enough. That led to me a second documentary that I always wanted to go to the Northern Ireland, because ever since I was in London and lived in Dublin, I was hearing about these problems in the north. So the desire as an artist was to find out why these two warring factions, same faith, they're both Christians, why they're fighting. Is that the same as in our faith, Sunni and Shias? But that's a different story, that's a historical background. Let's go and find out. So I then saw the peace process happening and the Good Friday Agreement came about. And I said, let's freeze the first year of the peace process. Is it going to happen for real, or is it going to be a joke and the bombs will go and start the back to square one? So on spec, I contacted my bank manager and I said, look, I want to borrow some money to make this documentary. Lo and behold, again, a good gentleman who was from the north, working in Dublin, he said, yeah, how much you want? And he just basically bankrolled the whole project for me. Not a massive cost, but enough to cover the cost of making the film. Myself and cameraman again went up to the north. Every day, literally, we went there for 6 weeks and we shot interviews and things like that. And it was a 4-part television series called Our View. Our View, I coined the term of the people who are neither Protestant nor Catholic and are living in Northern Ireland in 6 counties, why and how they survived the troubled time of 30 years of Grey Steel shooting, Omagh bombing and things like that. Very interesting happened while I was filming. Omagh bomb went off and I said, my goodness, what going to happen? My cameraman got nervous, the crew got nervous. I said, Siraj, we're abandoning this, we're going back to Dublin. I said, lads, we have a challenge here. Either we can go back to Dublin or we can go back to Omagh and get the real pictures, what's happening, and jump into the action right there. Are you guys brave enough? I am. I don't care. We should get there. So the cameraman, John Daly, said, yes, let's go there. I'm excited too. So we went there. The day we arrived, there was a big funeral was going on in front of the church in Omagh. And it was a big procession, it was a funeral session. We filmed that originally. Then we went to the streets when we filmed it, real footage there. And then I turned that whole documentary into that direction, and I opened up the documentary with that piece of information that was happening. And here was my point, that is it for real? This peace process is for real? But then when I talked to Lord Alderdice, David Alderdice, who was a brother of Alderdice in the Belfast City Hall, he said, look, this thing is going to combine us rather than divide us. This thing is not going to let these thugs to do what they want to do. Who are the responsible people behind that? Oglina Heron, the new splinter group of IRA, who everybody was denouncing that they are not the people who represent us. They are the bunch of thugs who are just want to disrupt the peace. Very hardly achieved and recently achieved peace that we want to see it through in the north. Then I interviewed a wonderful man from SDLP, Seamus Mallon, in the Stormont building itself. SDLP, their position was the same. And he said, look, Siraj, I wouldn't have been sitting in this northern, I couldn't imagine in my life that I'd be sitting in the Stormont building here, talking to you about the peace in Northern Ireland. So there was a positive vibes on the whole process of the peace process. That project was also very successful. Ulster Television bought it from me. I was bailed out. I paid the bank my loan, and happy ending. I was returned back to my feature film. I said, now I go back again. Again in the development hell I was thrown in. The making of feature films is the most difficult thing if you don't have backers. If you don't have people who would believe in you that you can deliver the film, and then particularly the established film backers who would not take risk. They like to work with a safe pair of hands, people who have track record of short films and, feature films and things like that. First-time director is a crime in this industry. You do not commit that crime. You do not become, you cannot make film because you're a first-time filmmaker and nobody will fund your film. While that was happening, going back to your point, my spiritual journey, I was getting involved with the Muslim community in Ireland and particularly to my Shia community. And they said, look, we are a small community. However, we are very grateful that living in a Catholic Ireland, predominantly Catholic, and we're finding it a very congenial environment to practice our faith. These are the people who are coming from the Middle East, people coming from war-torn zones of Iraq and things like that. And they were finding it, asylum here and things like that. And lo and behold, that was quite correct. But Ireland was opening up its door for, people who were literally coming from war-torn countries and destitute people. The families were getting settled here and things like that. And I was getting involved, literally hearing those stories. Again, being aware of what's happening in a bigger picture in the Middle East. Then Second Gulf War happened. The first Gulf War was imminent. Then Mr. Bush bombed Kuwait and Saddam invaded Kuwait. The politics behind that was drawing me back, into the whole world of geopolitical Islamic context. And I said, this is not right, what is happening out there. They have no reason to be there. Why they are there? And then I came to know that what was his name, who was the chairman of the World Bank at the time. It was a big conference in Austria, Paul Wolfowitz, and he said that, do you know why we went to Iraq? Because the country is rocking in the sea of oil. So it was economic reason, nothing different from when British went to India to loot India, when they thought Mughal Empire is the golden bird, there's a lot of jewel, a lot of money there, let's go. And how Churchill actually drained the grains of Bengal to stockpile and created a famine there.
I mean, one of the things that's quite interesting about the Iraq War, the second one, is that shortly before, Saddam Hussein had actually started to trade in euros and not in American dollars.
That's right.
And I think something similar happened in Libya short time long, and both those countries were then, or the leaderships were knocked out.
That's right.
By the West, effectively, to dominate that.
Yeah. Well, Tony Blair went and met Gaddafi and embraced Gaddafi and praised Gaddafi for that. So there was some game was being played at the back, which they were, I would say, thick enough not to understand what was going on in the background. And there was a serious game was being played. against them. And as you said, both were knocked down completely.
I mean, with Iraq, there was actually, I remember watching documentaries at that time that there were billions of dollars being invested, that people were going out there like entrepreneurs. And then later on, it just disappeared.
That's right.
It didn't help develop the infrastructure.
Not at all. Not at all.
And I remember the lie that was told about weapons of mass destruction. And the first time you saw a weapons of mass destruction was on the first newsreel of the bombing of Baghdad.
Of Baghdad, that's right.
You know,
I was on the News Talk 106, live at the time, the night before the Baghdad was bombed. And it was lit on the screen, television screen, where we're in the studio discussing that. The dossier of Saddam Hussein, who was well prepared by, the Tony Blair and the case for bombing and case for destroying. And we could see that, a bright lit Baghdad was full of, light and everything. And the Desert Storm is going to happen in a few hours' time. The 2 o'clock is going to happen, 3 o'clock, the first raid was happening, and all that. So yes, it was the whole war we discovered. But the thing, George, is that we don't learn from that, or we don't want to learn. We probably know what we're doing. And so therefore we create pretext. Under those pretexts, we go to these wars. Our ultimate motive is economic, gain out of the war. So wars are not fought on religious purposes, on faith basis. They are fought for economic reasons.
In the second part of my interview with actor, writer and director Siraj Zaidi, we talk about film distribution, teaching media, geopolitical tensions and faith. Don't forget to like on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube. Thanks for watching. Let's talk. We have more on the way, so please subscribe to this channel and check out the link below if you'd consider becoming a patron to help us keep making more content. Thanks for watching.